The Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment investigated Debbie Iskandar and says her behaviour and deception was the lowest kind of behaviour for a landlord, and Iskandar willfully broke laws. I spoke to Acting General Manager of Housing and Tenancy Services, Steve Watson.
It's a really significant case because what it does is it sends a message to landlords that you can't treat your tenants like this, that you have to obey the law, and that just to behave in this way is completely unacceptable.
And how exactly was Debbie Iskandar behaving here? What was she up to?
She was failing to lodge bond with the Tenancy Bond Centre. She was misleading her tenants, and she was breaching the Residential Tenancies Act in doing so.
So when you say misleading the tenants, was she doing what? Telling them that she'd lodged bond and then sticking it in her back pocket, or what was she up to exactly?
She was not lodging the bonds, and it is a legal requirement for her to lodge the bonds, and her tenants would have expected in every case that is what she did.
So in terms of the penalties here, there are some 60 plus legally binding orders as a result of this case. Can you give us a flavour of those orders?
Yes, I can. So she's required to lodge $119,625, which is bond money that she had taken from tenants. She's required to lodge that with the Tenancy Bond Centre here at MBIE, where we'll work out where it should be dispersed, whether it needs to be retained or whether it needs to be returned to the tenants. We'll work through that process, and it'll be a long process. In addition, she was being ordered to pay $47,600 for committing unlawful acts under the Residential Tenancies Act. That money will be divided up proportionately amongst the tenants who've been wronged through her actions, and that's by way of exemplary damages to compensate them for what's happened to them. In addition, there is an amount of approximately $11,000, which is administrative costs and tribunal and application costs that she will be required to pay back to the government.
So in terms of those bonds which she now has to lodge, has any of that money come in yet?
No, we haven't received any money as yet, and we will be following that up very soon.
That's interesting because I've spoken to Debbie Iskandar and she claims that she has since lodged those bonds. So just to be clear, you have yet to receive that 119 plus thousand.
I'm yet to see any evidence of that, and to be fair, I would need to check tomorrow morning once the banking processes have been processed. But I will, we will be able to give you that information tomorrow.
What was her excuse in all of this?
Her excuses were numerous, and I don't have the actual files to hand, but in general she thought that she was doing the right thing by her tenants, and she didn't see any harm in not lodging the bonds.
Did the Tenancy Tribunal find that this was willful, or was it ignorance?
The Tenancy Tribunal found that she deliberately did not lodge the bonds, and that is why they've ordered her to do so.
So how would you describe her behaviour and her as a landlord?
So her behaviour as a landlord was unprofessional and completely unacceptable to the market, the residential tenancies market. The residential tenancies market exists to provide a fair environment for both tenants and landlords, and she has behaved at the very, very lowest end of the scale in terms of what she's done.
Do you mean lowest end of the scale in terms of what you would expect as good behaviour?
Yes. In terms of the number of properties she had, she is a professional landlord, and the expectation of the ministry is that she behaves in a professional way, treats that as a proper business, and complies with all the laws and the rules and regulations that other business people who are operating in the same market have to do.
Tell me, what happens if she can't pay because she says she doesn't have the money to pay?
The judgment against her means that it is a lawful debt and therefore is enforceable through the legal debt recovery processes, and the ministry will follow that process through and try to recover the money from her through the court process or whatever other processes are open to us.
So do you know if Debbie Iskandar is still acting as a landlord in any capacity? And can she?
She can act as a landlord. There is nothing prohibiting her in legislation to do so. One of the things that the compliance team will be doing is ensuring that Ms Iskander has learned her lesson from this penalty, because that's what we are seeking to do, is seeking for her to change her behaviour if she continues to act as a landlord. We will be following up at some point in the future to check on her behaviour and to see that if she is acting as a landlord, that she is doing everything as she should in accordance with the law.
Isn't that remarkable that she can still be a landlord after this? Is there no way that can be stopped?
The law in the country, as it stands at the moment, means that she can continue to be a landlord, but what we can do is continue to monitor her behaviour and hope that she does change her behaviour and act very quickly if she doesn't.
Hope? Is that good enough, or is this a fault in the law, do you see here?
We have to deal with the law as it stands at the moment, and the current situation is that we will be monitoring her very closely and making sure that she complies with the Residential Tenancy Act as it stands at the moment.
And that is Steve Watson from MBIE, who's going to be keeping a close eye on Debbie Iskandar, as are we. We will check in and see if she has indeed made those bond payments.